Hello everyone, I'm James, and I am holding this open discussion to hopefully promote solutions to the challenge that we're having, the horrible challenge we're having with school gun violence. Please join me. The link is on the event page, so you can join directly into this call, and actually we can have an open dialogue. Would love for you to have a webcam, but if you don't, please join anyway, and let's just talk. So invitations are out. If you're having trouble, you can post in the comment thread, and I'll send you an invitation directly into the Google Plus Hangout. You certainly are more than welcome to comment in the comment thread as well if you're not comfortable actually speaking or being on camera. But let's have this conversation any way we can, because it's the most important one we can have. So please reach out to me directly if you're not able to get in, and I'll help you troubleshoot. I don't want it just to be a monologue. I want us to have a discussion, and I've had a couple of them lately, and I'm learning, and we're discussing, and we're coming up with potential solutions, but it's going to take all of us. We can't just rely on others to pave the way. We've got to figure it out, and it's so important. So please join me, and we'll have this conversation together. I'm going to post a link in the comment thread just in case it gets buried here so that you can easily find it. I'm using the hashtag #NotOneMore to promote this, so please share that. Let everybody know that it's here, the conversation's going, and we could talk together. Some of the potential solutions that have been mentioned range from, of course, gun control is one of the hottest most hotly contested options. That's one of the discussions. Other discussions, other potential solutions are more parental accountability, education, gun safety education, emotional training for school staff members, for parents, for family members, for students, so that they can help one another, so that we can find every issue that is affecting this and come up with a solution. So please join me, and we'll have this discussion. So I'm just going to make sure that everybody can find it here. Okay, and that I'm going live here. So please jump in at any time, and we'll talk. Hopefully we'll have some people join, and we can have an open dialogue, because that's really what is needed at this point. You know, I hear a lot of back and forth. I hear one side blaming the other, and I hear the other side exonerating themselves, and really we just need to come together and stop focusing on pointing the finger, stop focusing on the rhetoric, and just talk. This is not one golden issue that we're going to be able to solve all in one fell swoop. This is going to be an ongoing effort. It's going to take time, but I still hope that we can not go any longer than we will not have any more shootings, that we'll be able to address this at every level of the cause, both on making the potential danger less lethal and on actually fixing the underlying causes, whatever those are. I don't profess to have all the answers. I just know that we have this problem. Don't know the solution, but I know the question, which is, how do we stop this? So please join me. You can also watch this on YouTube. And here is the here's the link for that. If you're not comfortable actually speaking, then feel free to type any questions you have into the comment thread. I'm happy to address those here. I understand that some people may not be comfortable. I'm not comfortable, but that's why I'm doing this, is because I'm not comfortable, and I'm afraid for my children and your children, and I know that we need to do something. So maybe one voice doesn't make a difference, but hopefully it will. Some of the other things that have been discussed is I had a conversation with a naturopathic doctor at a Starbucks. I'm at a Starbucks. I'm at the Starbucks in Fremont, if in Seattle. If you'd like to just come by and chat, that's a great conversation as well. But I had a conversation at a Starbucks with a naturopathic doctor, and and the topic at the time was gun control, because that's what somebody mentioned as the hottest topic to discuss. And she said, that certainly is something to discuss, but the underlying the root cause, the underlying issue, won't be addressed by that. And that was a very valid point. And from her perspective, it was the psychological health of our youth. What's happening there. The unspoken pain that kids are feeling, that would potentially lead to something like this, and certainly all of the other complications or challenges that help it along the way to reach these horrific events that we're seeing. But there's that underlying root cause of their inner turmoil, their pain, and I certainly had considered the psychological impact. The alleged shooter of Seattle Pacific University, which is just 2 miles from where I'm sitting here, he had taken himself off of his own medication, antipsychotic medication, in his words, so that he could feel the hate. And boy, that had to brew for a long time to get to that point. So certainly there is something there that needs to be addressed, and so we have to be aware of that. That's definitely part of it. I think parental accountability is certainly an aspect that has to be discussed. The Reynolds High School shooting, this week, on this Tuesday, actually, just a few days ago, the shooter broke into his father's. I don't know if it was a safe or not, but the local authority had said that he had bypassed the security measures, whatever those measures were. He was that determined to get into that, to get to those weapons, and it was a handgun and the assault rifle that we've heard of before in school shootings, the AR-15, and a lot of ammunition. And he was able to reach that and put it in a guitar case and a duffel bag and take it to school. And so parental accountability certainly has to be discussed. Gun safety certainly has to be discussed. Education, training, the how well equipped our school staff is in being able to identify an issue and address that issue. What other students can do if they think there may be an issue. There are just so many levels to this. Another component of this is the response system, the response process. And I was at a technology event last night, and they're talking about safety and how personal safety devices and alert notification devices. There's an app called Guard 911 that allows off-duty police officers to respond if they're within a radius of an emergency call that can be triggered by teachers. One thing, and it's really difficult to talk about something being us being lucky in a situation like Reynolds High School, but one thing that helped prevent additional casualties was that the teacher, who was also hit by a bullet, was able to make it to the office and alert them, and they were able to call the lockdown, and that had a huge impact on not having more lives at risk. But what if the teacher cannot make it to the office if that's the only place to trigger excuse that horrible word, but to start a lockdown. What if it's too far away? What if the phones have been disabled in some way, or they're not able to reach them? What about other students? We have fire alarms that uh, uh, can be activated by a student. Why not a lockdown if it's not a fire? Um, or maybe we just make it a general alarm and we make them more accessible. Why are there not more apps, safety apps available that we can address it that way? So there are any number of things that we have to consider here, and like I said, I don't want this to be me just talking. So please join the conversation, and we'll try to come up with the solution together. Sir? Can I ask you a quick question? And you don't have to be on camera, but I'm recording something because I'm looking for solutions to the challenges we're having with keeping our kids safe in schools. And I wondered if you just had any feedback on how we can do that, what you see the issues are, what the potential solution is. That's something that I think we all just have to talk about. Sure, I understand. Yeah, and it's certainly illegal, and it's illegal for. Right. How do you enforce it? Is it? I mean, some schools have metal detectors. That's maybe part of the solution. More metal detectors. Another extension of that is there are they call them resource officers. I think it's a police officer that's on campus. Maybe we need more of them. Right. Sure. Right. I went to for my freshman year in high school. I went to Garfield High School, and it was pretty rough then. It was quite rough, and there was a fair amount of that. There were crack houses right across the street, and okay, yeah, yeah. And we had numerous drug busts. There was a school shooting in front of the school, off school grounds, but it was a targeted gang-related shooting where they drove by, and the target was in the public bus stop there, waiting for the bus, and was targeted. It was rough. I graduated in '91. It was my freshman year, so 87, I guess. Yeah. So I did take music. Yeah. Why do you ask that? Clarence Acox? Yeah, he was my band director. Yeah. Oh. Oh. Yeah, he still plays around. Uh, um, on on East Lake, there's a restaurant. I think it has cafe in its name. I can't quite remember the name, but it's a jazz spot, and he often, I think he plays with a trio or a quartet. I, it's on East Lake, and I don't remember the name. I think it's something cafe, but he often plays there. I think they have jazz every night of the week. Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I bet I could look it up. Uh, no, it's sort of middle to north. Um, it's pretty well known, although it's not coming up in a search. It might be Montlake actually. No, I'm pretty sure it's Eastlake. Right. Um, Oh, really? Oh, wow. Congratulations. Yeah. Yeah, my youngest is 6. Um, and it's just heart-wrenching to hear. SPU is a very open campus. I went and visited yesterday just to walk around, and yeah, there was a shooting. There was a shooting. Yeah, and it was a 26-year-old who I mean went the week before and did a tour to see where locate to scope out locations. I mean, it's just uh, no, not a student. Just targeted a large group. I'm not sure exactly why students in particular. Maybe because it was such an open campus, um, and I think they're being very courageous there. I think being a faith-based school certainly helps that they promote the healing aspect of a tragedy like that. But they have signs, be brave, and there is some sign of something happening. But by and large, it just looks like a welcoming campus, as open as it was. And I don't know how you maintain that in light of something as tragic as what happened right there. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. One student was killed. Another badly in critical but stable condition in the hospital still. It was stopped by a somebody who was a student there, but was also working in some sort of, I don't think a security guard capacity, but some sort of capacity like that, sort of building monitor kind of capacity sort of job. And um, thankfully, the weapon that was used was a shotgun, and it had to be reloaded. And while he was reloading, um, this student sprayed him with mace and then tackled him. Went and locked the weapon away. Wrestled a man. Yes. Oh, right, right. It may have. I don't know if it was his personal mace or if it was something that was available to him because of his job. But and then had to disarm the man again when he pulled out a knife, and then other students subdued him until the police arrived. So tragic. So glad it wasn't any worse, but so just so tragic. They talk about Sandy Hook was supposed to be the catalyst for a real change to address this and fix it, but there have been um, so many tragic events like this since then that I'm scared to send my kids to school. I'm scared. No, they go to public school, and my wife homeschooled them when they were younger, but when they got older, it was not more about the social environment than the education, but certainly about it more than it was when they were younger. And they've been in public school since then, and it's really scary. Um, in Everett, we're in the Everett school district. Yeah. Yeah, and I have two in elementary school, one in middle school, graduating to high school, and one in high school, and one in college, and one graduated from college already. So it's really it's really tragic. I feel like there's no level where now I feel like now they're safe, because it just happens all the way uh, through the education system. So my question and I want to open this up to you as well, was what do we do? I mean, what do you think the issues are? What do we do? How do we address this? Somebody who had some mental conditions. Uh huh. Okay. Sure. Well, I don't. It wasn't. I'm sure there are some now. It was kind of I see it more in the movies, but the previous answer was the homes where people would go without really having a choice to go, and and that's how our society decided we could have some separation and maybe some safety from that. And there were so many reports of just horrible conditions and horrible treatment of individuals, inhumane treatment of individuals, that they all of them that were publicly visible seem to have closed. And I think we do probably have people with more mental challenges on the street, but I don't think that the homes were a good solution because of the way that people were treated. Well, kind of like what we would maybe call as an insane asylum, or I know there were degrees of that. A place for somebody to have their meals taken care of, and keep people safe, and that kind of thing. I think a lot of that seemed to, from my perspective, be perception, though, and not necessarily a real issue, and certainly not a good solution. We certainly have a real challenge with addressing mental illness in our culture, in our not just in this area, but in the United States in general. And so maybe that's certainly is part of it. And there are degrees of mental illness to the extent where we wouldn't necessarily know by looking at someone that they had any challenge. And so that's part of it too. But I think that certainly is part of the what we need to address. But how much of it is the real question, because the the man who walked onto SPU and started shooting was prescribed medication for mental illness, was on antipsychotic medicine that he stopped taking 6 months before, because in his own words he said he wanted to feel the hate. And so he was wrestling with some major things going on. And his plan, as is often the case, was to end his life after he committed this horrible act. And that is not something that we would consider a sane thing to do either. But why the combination is really challenging. I had a conversation on Twitter with someone who had experienced a school shooting. It was in 1995, I think, toward the East Coast, if I remember correctly, and the student who had struggled for many years with feeling helpless. Big part of it was he felt helpless. He didn't have a lot of friends. He had some. And in fact, one of the victims, accidentally, he says, was his best friend's sister. He was aiming for teachers, targeting teachers when he went to school that day. And he missed a teacher and hit his best friend's sister and killed her. And so, and he felt remorseful that he hit the wrong person. And his plan was to take his own life after, but he was wrestled to the ground and is spending the rest of his life in jail, and actually speaks out to students, and tries to identify ways that this could be stopped in the future. But he wasn't, at the time, wasn't remorseful about the teachers. He was remorseful about a student. So just that state of mind is.
I saw it happening a long time ago. I have a friend, maybe 25 years ago. She teaches down in Olympia, and she's like a gifted. I mean, she teaches gifted students.
They call them highly capable around here. Yeah.
Seeing the gamut. I asked her what she saw as the change back then in students' behavior, and she said they're incorrigible. I mean, you can't really make them feel guilty anymore. They don't seem to have any standards.
Yeah.
And this is like 25 years ago that I asked her that, so it's just mushroom. It's
Yeah.
really, I don't want to say it's impossible, but something major would have to happen.
Yeah.
Major. I don't know if the churches need to step in more, take a bigger role. I think that from what I can read, the new pope is doing some pretty dramatic things.
Well, maybe we can extend that and say community leaders, because that certainly is a community leader for many people.
This actually happened. We live in Florida, in St. Pete, Florida, and we had a pretty nationally known officers killed, on purpose. Was it a shootout? 3 or 4 in a month. I mean, it was.
Well, it wasn't one event, it was
No.
different events.
And our leaders came together. We have a huge black community there, and like 90% don't ever graduate.
Wow.
It's horrible. Fatherless, horrible, horrible. So anyway, they had the community, the church leaders came together for that one. And I don't know if they really made any changes or had any solutions, but that was at least 2 or 3 years ago. We stopped going to that church, so I don't really know what happened. But that
Yeah.
was his idea, was to get the black minister from the black part of town and the white,
Yes, this far exceeds any sort of racial boundary, any religious boundary. This is as non-discriminatory as we can imagine in a lot of cases. They're not targeting other races often, right?
totally south.
Right.
Some of these people are so black.
And you say wacko. Um,
Stop it.
well, but the interesting thing.
Unpredictable.
Well, I mean, I'm not challenging the word. It's just that I'm challenging. I'm challenging. I can't. The Reynolds High School. Reynolds High School in Oregon, the one that happened this week. I don't blame you. I try to avoid the news as much as possible. But in Reynolds High School in Oregon, in a small community, but it's one of the largest schools in Oregon, 3,000 students, and that's where a 15-year-old, I believe he was either 14 or 15, wasn't targeting anyone in particular, but they said he bypassed his family's security measures on their guns, took 2 guns and a lot of ammunition, put an assault rifle in a guitar case and the ammunition in a duffel bag, and rode the bus to school. And there were kids on the bus that asked him what was in the guitar case, and he said, "Oh, it was just to stand for his football uniform and equipment and things." And had what seems like a very normal start to his morning, and then went instead of going to school, went to the gym, went to the men's locker room, changed into a hunting vest and a helmet. I mean, this was all very prepared, and another student happened to walk into the locker room, and he was shot and killed, a 14-year-old. And it makes me think about 2 things. It makes me think about a bunch of things, but 2 things in particular. One is a 15-year-old. I cannot put 100% of the blame on a 15-year-old child. This is a freshman in high school. I think of my mental maturity when I was a freshman in high school, and I cannot put 100% of the blame on him. I don't know where the rest of it goes, but I know he was a child. And there is enough going on mentally, emotionally, that I can't say he is the 100% of the blame goes on him. And I don't know if it's parents or school or society or what, but
I just thought of something else that has bothered me for a really long time, and it's the way our press handles these crimes. They give them notoriety. When John Lennon was shot and killed, it was Mark David Chapman. I mean, everybody knew his first name, middle name, and last name. So I think a lot of these are copycat things.
it could be.
And now it's even bigger because it's on TV, on the internet. I mean,
Right.
you get on the world.
Right.
World game.
Well, it seems like there are 2 recurring themes when we talk about the impact of media desensitization. There's certainly that aspect of it's almost like some people say that one of the catalysts is that they're doing this because they'll leave their mark on the world, that they'll go down in infamy. I don't know how much actual evidence we have of that, based on the few people who actually did not take their own lives after they committed one of these horrible events. It seems like most often that is their goal, is to end their own life. So, and they usually have been deceased before any sort of notoriety happens. It's not like they get to see their name in the newspapers or on media. Maybe so. Maybe it's a way to have the final word.
Right.
Maybe. Um, the shooting.
Just experiment and maybe have a moratorium on, you know, publicizing their names,
Right.
the perpetrators' names.
Yeah, and I try not to share them, and I try to use them even in conversations because there could be some truth to that, and I don't want to in any way contribute. Um, but but is that aspect enough? Because if we look back historically, there have been school-related shootings since the 1700s, since there was school in the United States, before there were the United States. In the colonies, there were shootings, or violent events at school. It definitely seems like it's growing, but where do we attribute that? Do we attribute that only to media because they were happening before there was media? But certainly it's more. Twitter and other social media platforms immediately, parents were hearing about this because they were seeing tweets from their children before the school had time to respond, before the event was even over. Parents and friends were hearing about something happening. And so there certainly could be some truth to that. The other media-related thing I think that's important to bring to the table is the role that violent video games, violent movies play in desensitizing youth who maybe are not equipped at the age that they first have exposure to recognizing reality from fantasy, violent fantasy, and does that play a role in maybe getting them one step closer to being able to think about doing something like this? Um, we don't. One record that we actually have was the shooting, I believe 2 weeks ago, and they kind of called it a school shooting, but it was in Southern California, where where he stabbed people in his apartment and then went on a shooting spree, driving and shooting people, and killed I think 4 people total. Just horrible, horrible. But he left a very lengthy journal entry prior to this, and he documented his plans. And uh, boy, it's just it's horrific. Even if you were just reading it or hearing about it in a movie, but this actually happened. I mean, he actually wrote these things down and planned this meticulously.
I think we do contribute to this.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't get, I don't discriminate at all. So when I see these movies with these, these, and they're generally very entertaining, but I'm thinking some people like me would never even think about doing half of these crimes if they didn't see it in the movie.
But someone that is not as stable emotionally or mentally, maybe that is a contributing factor. I mean, if the most hotly contested topic, of course, is gun control, and the proponents of gun ownership say that it's not guns that kill people, it's people that kill people. Um, and one thing that other countries often criticize the U.S. for, because our crime rate is relatively similar to other developed countries. It's not like we're so way out there in left field that we're totally in a league of our own. But our murder rate with guns is completely far and away above any other developed country, and maybe any other country, anywhere, regardless of social class. So we can't talk about this issue without talking about gun safety and gun control, but there's so many aspects to it. Where do we start and where do we go? What do we do? What would your top 3 things be if you could say, this is what I would do to address the issue? What would they be?
About the deaths
About stopping school shootings. Because guns certainly are by far the most lethal weapon. So we can't just say, well, it's people that commit these crimes, so it doesn't have anything to do with guns. Because if we can reduce how lethal the events are, even if we can't immediately address the systemic issue of mental health or emotional health that would cause these things, at least do we take guns away from the equation. And if they have to if they have to resort to less lethal measures, at least we're saving lives.
I wonder if you could educate, like, from first grade on, and just make it appropriate for every, as the kids mature, make it more complex or whatever. But just a
Right.
story about the tragedy of someone losing a family member.
Mm-hmm.
When they made Bambi, the movie Bambi, deers, the number of deers shot the next year was like 50% less. I mean,
Mm.
you make somebody really feel sorry about that, and
Mm-hmm.
they have a cause of. I'm cold. They have a cause and effect kind of.
So the consequence of actions and the damage that it does, and
Make it for a kid to understand. Look what happened. He doesn't have his mommy anymore.
sure.
Doesn't have his brother anymore. Doesn't have his whatever.
Right. Right. One thing that I was really so surprised about and shocked about was the Las Vegas shootings. I don't know if you heard about that, but a husband and wife team with supposedly white supremacist views targeted police officers, killed 2 police officers who both were fathers. One had, I think, 3 sons, and the other one had a brand new young baby. And they also killed a citizen who was trying to be a good Samaritan and had a concealed weapon and approached them, and they killed him too. And yeah, I mean, I don't imagine that they were trying to ruin the lives of children, but certainly that is an impact. And did they not think? Right? Did they not think for a moment that those police officers might have families? How does that not? How do they not connect that?
They're not raised that way. It's just something you and I assume because we raised our children to have a cause and effect.
But we don't know how they were raised, really. I mean, it's just we might assume that they had a rough childhood, and it took them longer to reach that snapping point where they were going to commit a horrible crime like this. How does that happen with a 14 or 15-year-old?
I do think the economy also, this disparity between the rich and the poor that's grown out of control, that is also something that just making everybody edgy.
And that certainly could be it, but it definitely is not just lower class that are committing these crimes. The shooting in Southern California was a very well-to-do family. The car that he was driving when he committed the crimes was a BMW. His father was the assistant director to some major, like the Harry Potter series or something. So it certainly was not. It could. I'm not disputing that it has an impact, but it certainly is not only poor children that are reaching this point of desperation. We hope, we assume. I certainly get a little nervous. Part of it's ignorance on my part, certainly with their condition, but we don't know their condition. We just know someone who's acting in a sometimes belligerent or aggressive way when somebody comes in, and that's alarming to me. There's a woman with 2 kids walking by, and how are the kids going to react to something like that happening right in front of them? And yeah, that's definitely part of the challenge or part of the issue. So I'm sorry I took you off on a tangent, but you were mentioning a couple of things. I want to go back to that. The notoriety that the person committing the crimes gets. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for giving me some of your time. I think we all have to talk about it. The government is just at a gridlock. I mean, maybe something will happen, but there's so much finger pointing going on both sides too. It's not just the pro gun owners that are saying it's not us. We're really having a very difficult time actually coming to the table and having meaningful conversations, not about what we don't do, but what actually we do. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you.
If I think of what it was,
Yes, please let me know.
I'll let you know.
Not yet.
Are you planning to stay here the longer? I mean,
I'm gonna stay a little while. Yeah. I'm gonna switch over there so I'm close to the outlet. But please, if you think of anything, please let me know. Thank you.
What newspaper? Oh, I mean, I'll try to give you. What kind of questions do you think you're asking?
What did we do? What was it? Were you on campus that day?
I was not on campus.
Well, we'll just, I mean, it's just totally stuff like that. You can walk away at any time you want. But I'm not going to confront you or anything. I just want to know a college student's perspective on the challenge
So
of,
you just a concerned parent?
yeah, I have a college student, I have an elementary school student,
Really?
and I just want to keep them safe.
Sure. What your kid go to SB?
No, I don't have a kid at SQ. I have a kid at DigiPen
Okay, Digipen.
Yeah.
That's in Bellevue.
in Redmond, yeah.
Redmond, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
So you're a student at SPU.
Yeah.
What was it like on campus after it happened?
So I came back on campus the day after the shooting, and honestly, there was a lot of sadness, a lot of praying, um, just a lot of silence. People were mourning for the loss, and was just praying, and
Did you know either of the students who were hit?
I did not know any of the students who were injured or killed.
Yeah.
But there was a sense of support. There was a good support system at SPU. Right when the shooting happened, people got together, organizations came together, and came up with events and certain impromptu meetings so we can pray, talk, comfort each other.
Yeah. Do you think that helped being a faith-based school and kind of having that to tie each other together?
Definitely. There was a great sense of relaxation and peace when you have someone right there next to you, praying with you, and just even holding your hand.
Yeah.
It's really good. Yeah. It's not just like a group, like the whole campus came together. That was really cool in my opinion.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on what caused this? I mean, what do you know about what happened, and what do you think led up to it? Do you have any opinion or thoughts on it?
Well, I guess one of the popular, theory is that the media is giving out all these attentions to the killers, to the shooters, people who are causing these kind of tragedies. And so because of the way psychopaths and sociopaths, the way they think, they crave these kind of attention. So the more media time they get on the media, the more they crave. And,
Do you think it was for attention?
So at least,
I mean, that's what the media thinks. What do you think?
So that's what they think. For me, I honestly don't know what to think about the shooting. There was no cause. There was no personal reason, no personal vendetta.
It wasn't targeting somebody on
He wasn't
campus.
targeting anyone. He was just, a troubled man. Just didn't find the right help. Didn't find, the right connection. I guess.
He did find some help. I mean, he had been diagnosed with a condition and he had been prescribed medication. But he, as an adult, he made the choice to stop taking it, and that certainly seems to have had an impact on this.
Yeah.
What do you think the solution is? How do we fix this? We can't have this.
So yeah, I asked my friends that too. I put up a Facebook status about how do we fix it? How do we prevent stuff like this from happening again? And I'll tell you, I don't have an answer. I don't really have a good idea of how to fix it. People say it's gun control, but maybe. I mean, I'm a science student, a science graduate. So then, for me, for anything to be definitive, there should be data, statistics, like concrete evidence to show that there's a correlation between, loose gun control and increasing crime rates, stuff like that, then I would believe it. But honestly, I don't know what to think. I don't have a solution.
One thing that people from other countries have been pointing out and kind of critical of from the gun control perspective is that our crime rate is in line with other developed countries. It's not like our crime rate is totally out of control, but the number of murders by guns with gun as the weapon is massively over any other country, developed country definitely. I think any other country by a massive margin. And so that is where the argument that maybe better not just laws, because if the laws aren't enforced, then there's no impact. It's making something illegal doesn't stop it.
Right.
Enforcing that law is what would actually, some people say, have an impact. But even if we did do that, and the potential value from maybe it's not causation, but the correlation would be that if we make it less available, that means they have less lethal means, so that if someone does have this mental snap and they act out in a violent way against other people, they potentially would not be able to do as much harm if guns were not so available. And it's massive. We have 300 million guns in circulation in the United States, almost as many as we have people.
I honestly think a tighter regulation would be beneficial. Would be beneficial for everyone.
But that doesn't address the cause necessarily.
Right,
because
right.
The underlying emotional or psychological deficit in someone who gets to the point where they feel like they're, maybe not, they may not recognize this as the right thing to do, but at least they're justified in doing this. If they don't feel it's wrong, at least they know it's wrong. That's just my not one more hashtag.
Yeah. Gotcha.
If they get beyond this any sort of sense of right and wrong, to the point where they're ready to take this step and do this. There's certainly something going on there emotionally or psychologically.
There are definitely a lot of factors that play a role into a person becoming this kind of killer. For me, I think there should be a balance on everything: gun control, gun regulations, and all that. The media, like exaggerating things, and media, putting out news and information and stuff like that.
Kind of glorifying the person who does this.
Yeah, I think there should be a balance to everything, and that's what makes our body functions. That's what makes society works. Should be a balance.
Well, the interesting thing too is, from that perspective, because that's often an argument that's made, but the media wouldn't put it out if people didn't read it or tune into it.
Right.
I mean, we have some personal responsibility too, as just citizens and humans, to say we don't want to hear about it like that. We don't want people to be memorialized so they feel like they're making their mark on the world by doing this horrible act too. So at some point we have to recognize that if we just turned off the news, they wouldn't write about it. But now news is not put out just by media outlets. The first indications of anything going on with Reynolds High School were students tweeting, "We're in lockdown."
Right.
I mean, so there's a personal responsibility too that we have to address and kind of own and decide what's acceptable and what's not acceptable to us.
Yeah. Well, for me, like I mentioned before, I'm a science person, so I like science. I like data. I like concrete evidence. But I'm also a Christian, so for me, like the way I dealt with this whole tragedy is that what can I do? Like, when honestly, like before this stuff happened, I really never, think a whole lot about when stuff like that happened to other places.
Right.
It didn't really impact
Doesn't
me
affect me
that hard until that it happened so close to me, and that it could have been me in that room. It could have been me getting shot. And for me, I've recognized the fact that it's really insecure, right? It's like everywhere you go, like there's a really good chance that there's a chance that you might die.
There's some chance.
There's a chance that some lunatic is gonna come in and shoot you. But then I just gotta reconcile with the inner peace inside. Like I understand that God is the sovereign God, and that no matter where I am, when I die, I go to heaven, I go to a better place. So I just gotta reconcile with that fact, and just have that inner peace, know that whatever is gonna happen, God is still in control. And I'm just gonna take that one step at a time.
What, from a student perspective, and you're a few years younger than I am,
Definitely.
closer to the definitely to the age of being in high school, where
Sure,
many
yeah.
of these
Yeah.
crimes happen, at an age where many of the
Is this some kind of block?
the killers. It's a Google Hang on Air.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I'm broadcasting and it's recording, and I want to share snippets of how people are coming together,
Right.
what's important to them, what
Yeah,
they
yeah.
see the issues are and the solutions are.
Yeah.
So it's just I feel like we all have to do something, and this is something that I can do, and hopefully it'll have some impact. But so you're a college student now. You've recently been a high school student. Many of the cases there's been an indication that friends knew something was happening.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't necessarily believe it. They didn't take it
Right.
seriously. But how do we get to the point where students it's okay for them? It's not like they're narking on their friends or whatever.
Right.
There's the stigma of, well, if you tell on somebody, there could be repercussions. If
Right.
kind of thing, hazing or whatever. How do we make it okay for students to either approach each other or to be able to go to a faculty member and say, I think this person's really having a difficult time and I'm scared? Because in many cases, 1 to 3 adults knew or were alarmed. They were concerned at some level that there would be maybe some physical violence. And usually at least one other peer knew either about plans specifically or just generally knew that person was thinking bad, negative thoughts.
Right. This is on the spot, so I.
Sure, no. Would you have felt comfortable in high school if you knew somebody who had maybe said, well, I'm going to go get my gun, or made some sort of comment in passing
Right.
that would be potentially violent?
Honestly, the way I was raised, like, I'm out there, I got my friends back. I'm not gonna snitch on them for skipping class or, doing whatever. But when it comes to my own security of other people, that their actions is going to affect other people, that would be like a red flag in my head automatically. Like my mind would register that as a red flag. If my friends say like, I'm gonna go get my gun and do stuff like, there's a red flag in my mind. And I would definitely report that to,
Well, that's the other thing. Do you talk to them directly, or do you feel more
Yeah.
comfortable going to a high school counselor or something like that and saying something?
Honestly, I would do both. Why not? Right? Why not talk to them? See if you can get through to them. Talk to their parents. And talk to the school authority.
Do you ever remember any rumors or anything going around when you were in high school about anybody that was violent or mean
Honestly,
or anything?
It's been 4 years since I've graduated from high school, and
Yeah.
even though 4 years wasn't that long ago, stuff like this wasn't that big of a deal.
Did you go to high school around here?
I went to high school in Tacoma,
Tacoma.
so like even like it was a very diverse, very low income high school. There wasn't a whole lot of stuff like that going on,
At least in your circle of friends, probably, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just I don't know if this really like relates, but for example, when I was growing up, like 5th and 6th grade, I thought like being smart was like being nerdy, not cool, stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then when I got to college, being smart is like an attractive thing.
It's pretty cool.
It draws people in. It's a good thing to have. So it's a change of perspective, right? So when you talk about narking, like snitching on your friends and stuff like that, it's all about perspective. And if you get your perspective, mainly, like, yeah, you get influenced by your friends, but I feel like parents play a huge role in influencing a kid's perspective, you know. So
Okay. So if you could do one thing to try to have an impact on this and reduce or eliminate school shootings, would it be focus on the parents?
I would say start from home, and then the next closest thing would be school, education at school. Give more recognition, honors to students who represented like school morality, society, have done well and stuff like that. I guess stuff like that, like positive or what is that? Constructive, positive reinforcement is right now. As I'm thinking about this, that's what jumped in my head. Positive reinforcement is should be increased. Should do more of that.
Yeah, and maybe for things that are at everyone's ability too, because certainly the star quarterback gets lots of accolades.
Right.
Somebody who is the champion of one thing or another gets a lot of credit and positive reinforcement. Maybe someone who hasn't really grown into their own skin or hasn't really been a major achiever.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to find ways to reinforce them positively as well. In at whatever level they're at, so that they get that encouragement, so they get that.
I feel like, yeah, I feel like a lot of times education is the main thing. People are not really educated on the facts, on what really is going on.
Like, what do you mean? What kind of facts?
Like they're educated about the media, right? The media exaggerate. They say things, they do this and that, they twist things to their own, wanting.
They have their own spin,
Yeah.
kind of thing on it.
I feel education is important. Like, people need to understand the statistics. How has gun control correlates to the crime rates, right? How has this affected like the general population, stuff like that. Like, I don't know much about like this stuff. Like, it just recently happened. I just recently not introduced, but became more aware of this.
Well, happening at your own school, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But like, for example, like autism vaccine, right? It's definitely a good thing for you, but people who are uneducated, they only hear from like celebrity advocates, like Jenna McCarthy and stuff like those people.
Cerebral palsy, yeah.
Right. So they just like, oh, it's really bad for you. It's
Yeah, how vaccines can cause autism potentially.
right. So then, we can use that, but do it in the right way, in the correct way, right? So I feel like that would positively reflect, a better outcome.
Okay, so on the education front,
Yeah.
really, really being objective with data and with perspectives and with information that's shared, not being one-sided about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Really big balance about it, which is challenging because our society is set up. It's very polarizing. Everything. Politics is very polarizing, and
Exactly.
issues like vaccines. The pharmaceutical companies versus the individuals who have an autistic child, and everywhere in between. All these issues are very bipolar in their nature, so that's challenging.
The one thing that the one positive thing that came out of this whole tragedy is that the media is giving us attention on spreading the gospel, spreading the good news. The lifestyle of a Christian. How we forgive, how we reconcile with things, and I think that's one positive thing that came out of this whole mess. And we were begging the news to like, all right, not deny the fame, not don't try to broadcast the killer, but broadcast how we are dealing with the situation, and how we came as a community together. And
Yeah, it certainly was highlighted really well in the media, more so than normal.
more so than normal. Yeah, exactly. So that was really cool. That, in my opinion. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, man.
It's awesome. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
What's your name?
James.
James.
That's right.
Quincy.
Quincy?
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Quincy. Appreciate it.
I'm really surprised more people are not willing to discuss this. People in person, sure. Why are people in person more willing to discuss this than people online? We know from very, very sad experience this is not going to go away on its own. We all have a responsibility to find solutions. So, some issues. What to do about education? Education on issues of uh, gun training, gun safety training, uh, the impact of guns, how damaging guns can be, how lethal they are. Um, although that seems almost pointless when time after time it's very clear that these kids knew what they were doing. I mean, they planned. This was not um, something in the heat of the moment that they did. This was orchestrated over an extended period of time sometimes. Uh, Detailed plans made, great lengths taken to commit these acts. So we have to figure that out. It's not going away on its own, obviously, since it's been, however you count it, 15 or 74 incidents since Sandy Hook. We have to do something. I've been broadcasting for an hour and a half. I have posted a number of requests, and I'm not hearing back. I mean, I did hear back from a couple of people. Liberal hippie queen on Twitter, uh, Andrea J. Markley. Thank you for saying you couldn't join me. I appreciate that. Um, Had a couple of shares at Towner_Terry. Thank you for retweeting. Um, I'm hoping to have a conversation at a future time with Kayla Vaughn, who was a survivor of a school shooting happened at her school. If there are more people that are willing to share their stories, maybe we can all get to the point where we recognize that this impacts lives far beyond the victim and the shooter, and maybe their families. Um, but I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep trying to reach people, to get them to respond, to have a conversation, and hopefully more people will join me. So I'm going to give a couple more minutes. Hopefully somebody will jump on and have a conversation with me. I'm gonna have to find a way to take the message to the streets. If people won't come to me online, then I'll have to talk to people individually. But we have to have this conversation. We can't not have this conversation. Yeah. Not one more. We have to believe that it's not one more. So please talk to me.
And so now Jake says he's just. Can I interrupt for a minute? Sorry. Can I ask you guys? I'm trying to create awareness, or actually, for my own benefit, I'm trying to get more information about what people think that we can do about the school shootings that are going on. Do you mind if I interview you guys for a minute? I just like to record it, and I'd like to share what I hear.
It's an interesting subject, you know.
Mind if I record? Okay. So if I could just have you guys step together a little bit there. Can you just share some comments about what you think we can do about the situation with the school shootings? Either what you think the cause is or what the solution is. I would really like to be able to just compile some information and share it with others. Just what was that, honesty?
When that shooting happened, first of all, there was a young man who saved the day. Very important. Truly what happened. Second of all, not second of all, but honesty in general. Okay, across the street, the Seattle Storm was practicing. Sue Bird was giving an interview when that happened. She was talking about Lauren Jackson. Like two of my biggest heroes in the entire world. It's so good, such great people. And then bang bang, they heard the shots and dropped it. And also, my landlord is a landlord right over there on campus, and he has to take careful about everyone he rents to and about everyone in that area. And he's a martial artist, he's a tough guy. And so I just think, to be honest about what happened, how terribly tragic it is in the light of so much good energy to thwart such disasters.
Well, that's the poetry of it. But the fact of it is that the young man was totally out of his mind, and he had people knowing about how out of his mind, but nobody took responsibility. And so that's actually, in that particular case, how that got accomplished.
Well, as an adult, what can we do? I mean, what can I do if I feel like, or if you feel like I'm out of my mind? What recourse do you have? What can you do?
If you know somebody is like really got a problem, you got